Today, we are honored to have Mr. Binoj Nair with his experience and background, which will highlight aspects related to career in sales. After graduating from XLRI, Mr. Binoj Nair worked with Samsung Middle East. Mr. Nair has a marketing experience of more than 12 years and is currently manager sales at Canon Middle East. We are grateful for his presence among us today. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Binoj Nair.
Loud enough, or do I need to plug in the microphone? This wasn't for you to obviously hear me. That's for I think you need to So just give me a minute.
I'll say one word and right testing this. Mr. Binoj Nair has come at the right time. Every year I face the same music. Most of you want to graduate in marketing, and most of you want to become marketing manager overnight. Now, I have had this problem for the last 4 years in different places. To make you understand, and I think it has come at the right time, that the marketing career comes only when you know how to sell a thing. Selling comes first before you can ever go up into marketing. So you have to do the hard way, and I'll call somebody who is in Abu Dhabi now, who is a great guy now. He was a student of BGSO earlier, and he started. He was appointed by one of these Vodafone, and actually his role was to sell SIM cards in markets of Varanasi. This is how he started. I mean, it was not that they wanted him to do that. But they wanted him to realize how does it feel to sell SIM cards on the seats of Varanasi in India. I mean, unless you know the pain of a salesperson, how can you ever be a marketing guy? I mean, so everybody wants to go to a cushion room and do some marketing modeling, fashionable stuff, and never know how does it mean to be a salesperson. So that's why I think it's extremely important. I didn't even know that this would be like a salesperson in you. And that's why I thought I'll just have an opening remarks. At least that is, I think, the right time. Because in internships, more you struggle in internships, more you do the hard work, the better it pays. I'll give just one more instance. 2 years back, there was a student in IMT Ghaziabad called Angan Singh. He is Sardarji, and he did what he did. He was in Perfetti. He was working for Perfetti. The Perfetti wanted to sell their toffees and all that thing in the Sundarban region. They never had a reach. Sundarban is, I don't know how many of you know about that. It's a land of rivers, the land of Royal Bengal tigers. There are hardly any roads. There are very shabby hotels there. His job was to go to these local markets and explore the possibility of setting up how to reach to the population there. And he was the first guy to get a job at IMT Ghaziabad. He got a highest paid job. So I think this is the right time you start laboring and not think of nice time right now. The more you struggle today, the more you'll have a better future tomorrow. So I think I'll welcome Mr. Nair, because he is actually doing part of the job which I am doing every year. Thank you.
Can I check? Can I sing a song? Not a bad one, so I will do that. But you can hear me. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I want to say ladies and gentlemen, because that's going to take your age up. Let's not do that. So good evening, guys and gals. Honestly, I'm a little nervous, and I'll tell you why. Because I expected, I was sort of coordinating with Konak, and I sort of expected this group to be about 25, 30. And he said, let's do it for 16 minutes. I said, can we do it for a little longer? Because I don't intend to do a lecture here. Because I used to sleep in class, and I can imagine the others would do the same. Because I don't think speaking is about lecturing, it's really about facilitating. That's what we learned from our professors. So I said, can we have it a little longer? And he said, yes, we can do it. And later, I think the day before yesterday, I found out that it's a fairly huge curve. And then I'm wondering, okay, now how do I handle this? But the salesperson that I am, I'm sure I'll have a way out, and let's see how that goes. So, good evening, friends. Let's address each other as friends. Not that old either, so it's very to prove that point. But thanks a lot, Professor Shantanu. Thanks a lot, Konak and the rest of the team for having me here. It's really a pleasure. I miss university. It's not been too long. Actually a decade, but that's not too long. But you know, memories are always the best in university. So please enjoy these years. I'm going to advise that to you as we start. I'm going to give you that piece of advice as we finish. And I'm going to keep doing that. All right. The point here is, before I start, I cannot have cold people here. Because, you know, when it's cold, I get cold. You know, you have to have the vibes. You know, it's always about the vibes. So, can you all just stand up for a minute? Just stand up. Okay. Thank you. The person to your right, give him a high five. Or your left, or whatever. I need to hear it. I need to hear it. Now say high five. Say high five. Okay. Okay. Thank you. The point is, you know, we are all going to be the management students today. We're all going to be managers at some point in time. The definition of management, apart from the car and the watch and the money and all that, is about managing people. And if you can't step out of the shadow, out of your comfort zone, then you're not going to be able to manage people. Okay, I learned that the hard way, and I'm just telling you what I learned. Okay, so shall we begin now that you're warmed up? Okay, so the topic is the salesperson in you. That's really a gimmick. I don't intend to do that. It's like the title of a movie, you know. The title of the movie has nothing to do with the movie at all, kind of thing. But it probably has, we find out. But that's how I like to term this session of ours. It is primarily about sales and marketing. When I was coordinating with Konak, I suggested, why don't you just speak to your classmates before I decide my topic, and just let's find out what they want to hear. A few set of topics, and then I'll probably choose something. And he obliged by giving me a few topics. Those topics, just for your information, I should have put it up here, I forgot to do that, had to do with things involving a regional perspective. Somebody said, I think, if I remember correctly, a marketing job after a sales job, a boon or a bane. Who was that? I need to know who that was. Who? Oh, that was you. Oh, okay. All of it was you? Okay. And how does the industry work here, and so on and so forth. So then I decided that, let's just mix the whole thing. Let's just make a mixed bag of the whole thing, because obviously I've understood what this program is about. You're obviously from a very reputed management institute, and therefore I'm glad you're here. And it's a brilliant program for you to have a year in a different country and a year in a different country. That's how it's structured, which is brilliant. And therefore, it's only fair that I should be able to give you a perspective of, the Arabian flavor. No, there's no belly dancer coming in, but a flavor as much as I can. Okay, so let's start off. It's only fair that I tell you a little more about me. I was born in the year 1977. That is old, I was lying. I landed in the UAE the next year, so I was literally brought up here. If I was in Canada, I would have had a passport by now. But since I'm here, I don't. I still have an Indian passport, which I'm proud of, so that's brilliant. I am a BTech in Tripoli, and I'm sure most of you are science or engineering students. I still can't figure out why that combination has to be the way it is in India. You either have to be a chartered accountant or a doctor or an engineer. There's nothing for a chartered accountant. Somehow there's nothing beyond that. But that's how it is, that's how our country is, and that's why we're so strong in resources, which is brilliant. In MBA in marketing, we have a dual specialization, MBA in marketing and HR from XLRI at the Dubai campus, at the executive program there. So I was working while I was doing that course. That reminds me, who in this group does not have work experience? Okay. Fine. So the majority of you have zero work experience. If I were the President of India, I would have immediately passed a rule saying that there should be no MBA student without a minimum of 2 years of experience. Not because there's something wrong with you, Not because there's something wrong with you doing a course directly, but MBA is not your ticket to Hollywood. Like the professor said, it's really not. It's really not a qualification, or it's not training. It's basically a period, if you ask me. And I'm sure you understand what I'm saying because your night lands are working all the time. But that's what it's all about. And for the same reason, I would think that somebody with a bit of experience, maybe 1 or 2 years, doing an MBA would bear so much more, result. And that's okay. Don't be disappointed. Come on. Do I need to make you stand and give another high five? You don't pout. It's okay. It's fine. You get the experience. I have about 12 plus years of experience with consumer electronics to the extent that I hate this industry now. But let's not let our boss know. But I really hate it because I think it's just been too many years. But nobody else gives me a job now. Obviously, you get stereotyped to that one industry. That's a pointer. But anyway, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're supposed to be good with what you are. I've had a lot of good experience, fortunately, in this field, in this region with very good companies. I was with Samsung, regional headquarters doing product marketing and then with the corporate marketing team. I've traveled a lot. I've seen so much in terms of corporate role. I have lived that corporate life that I've dreamt of so far, that's good. Currently, after a regional role in product management with Canon, I currently head the sales team in Saudi Arabia because the Canon office is here, handles the Middle East and Africa, and it's a huge region. Saudi is the biggest, as I'll explain to you later, and they have lots of money there because of the oil, and therefore you need that as a separate region, so that's a fairly huge region with a revenue stream that is extremely huge, and I head that zone. And except for the visits to Saudi Arabia, everything is perfect now. But it's not really a touristic place, I'm also a certified trainer from the Samsung Institute of Global Institute of Training at Seoul, Korea. I've also been certified at the Fuller Competitor Intelligence Academy. It's an Israeli name, that's why I can never get that English. But it's a nice course that talks to you about market intelligence and competitor intelligence, etc. I've also been certified there. So that's me in short. House rules. We need the house rules always, right? The regional mobile penetration is 1.5. I would assume all of you carry 1.5 mobile phones. Please shut that off. If you need to step out due to boredom, there's no problem with that. Raise your hands, walk out. I've already done a pre-discussion with Dr. Shantanu. He's okay with that as well. It's illegal to keep silent, absolutely illegal, because we are managers. We cannot keep silent. So you have to talk. Yeah, I know, it's okay. It's just first 2 slides and we just warm up, but you have to start talking. But of course, if all of us talk, it's going to be mayhem here, so you raise your hands, because if you have a point, then maybe somebody else wants to hear that out. We do that. There will be something called pit stops all over the place, because when we're discussing, we will have pit stops. Okay? I'm not going to tell you what a pit stop is. You will find out later. But we will have lots of pit stops in the next 60, 90 minutes that we're speaking. Hopefully, so that we're not really bored. The menu. What's in the menu for tonight? What I'm going to do with all those topics and the opinion that I got is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this country is all about. And I was wondering how much should I say, because you've been here for 6 months and you probably have visited all the nightclubs in town and all the boutiques in town, and it's already done. So what should I speak? But then I realized that in 6 months we barely have gone out because there's so much of work to do. So then that still remains valid. Sorry? Somebody said something. It's okay, say it. No, okay, thanks. And then, UAE can never be UAE. If you're going to work here, it's always regional. This is a region. It's a part of the Arabian region. It's a part of the GCC. So then it becomes important that you sort of understand what the GCC is all about as well. If that's all, you will offer that CEO's job the moment you pass out, which is not going to happen, but you never know. Yeah? We're going to talk about sales and marketing. And why we're going to talk about that is because you're all in the first year, you're sort of on the line, you're trying to decide whether you want that marketing job or the HR job or the operations job. You're not too sure. all you know is you own the leather couch and the glass cabin and the very nice looking secretary or cute secretary, whichever. That's all you know now. We get it, don't worry. So we see. And then the salesperson in you. Because there is a salesperson in us. And that's very important. Do you know, or have you realized, that you sell yourself to everybody every day of your life? If you're a nice girlfriend, that's when you sell yourself to everybody. If you're a nice daughter, if you're a nice son, you're actually just selling yourself. Literally, in a very philosophical manner, I can imagine, but you are. For the same reason, you will also realize later in your corporate life that even if you are in the HR function, if you cannot sell yourself to the CEO, to your divisional head, to your whatever, you're not going to make it. You're just not. So we just spend some time with that. Okay? All right. Any questions so far? That's not a good sign. Okay, we haven't started out with that. The story of the UAE. It is history class for the next 2 minutes. You can yawn, no problem. But if you have questions, please ask. You know why I'm saying that? 12 months is a short time to be in a country. And you've been here, or you chose to be here, because you wanted to understand this country a little more. You chose that option rather than staying back in the real world. And I understand that because of the practical issues of life, you cannot really venture out. Because if at the end of 12 months, if you haven't, hold on. Right? Ritika. My son's name is Rishabh, so that's Oh, you do? Who's that? Okay, so much like anyway, how many states make up the UAE? Do you know that? Okay, so we all know that. I'm just trying to see where are we in this whole game. Is it like the UAE book for dummies, or are we because of the lack of time? Anyway, doesn't matter. Because I wasn't anyways, going to spend time and tell you what is the population and the demographics and the GDP and blah, 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 because I'm sure you made a lot of reports that has to do with that. What I thought I would spend time is in some things that you might not know about UAE that I know, because obviously I came a little bit earlier than you guys, like about 30 years before. So, the UAE was a desert, obviously. It was inhabited. Have you heard of the Badus? Has anybody not heard about the Badus? It's okay to be honest, huh? Wow. The Badus are just an Arabic version of the Bedouins, the nomads. This country, this region is full of Badus. Okay? They spend their time between the desert, because there's a lot of desert over here. They spend their time at the seaside as well, and they were still called Badus. And in between, they spend their time in the oasis that they make. You know the oasis? Have you gone to desert safari? Yes. Ah, something exciting. Okay, good. So this is a land of desert, full of Badus. It is all about Badus. Have you gone to the Dubai Museum? Yes. Who's not gone to the Dubai Museum? Should be hanged. Because, on a serious note, I would tell you, please visit the museum, because it gives you a feel of the history. If you're going to go back to Ghaziabad without an understanding of what this region is about, I think it was then just such a big crime, right? Because obviously it's not the burgers that you came here for. I'm sure Ghaziabad has McDonald's and all this. It's really for the essence, right? You shouldn't go to any country and not feel the country. So go to the museum. You don't have time to visit all the 700s, go to the museum. I think it's a good experience. Abu Dhabi is the capital, we know that, right? Abu Dhabi was made of a lot of huts. That's what Abu Dhabi was all about. That's how they looked, just for your information. And the principal block of the UAE society, even today, is the Badus, or the Bedouin culture. And you need to know that, because when you get that glass cabin later on in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, etc., you will deal with the local population, because they run the government, they run the show, so you will deal with them. and it's different than how you would deal with a Mr. Nair than with Mr. Sheikh somebody else. Yeah? Because for example, when I go to Saudi Arabia, I need to spend 20 minutes out of a 60-minute meeting saying hi, how are you, salam alaikum, all that. You know, but that's how it is. You don't do that, your 40 minutes are not effective. That's because there's a culture behind it. And the same applies if you go to the Netherlands with the Dutch, let's say, very on the face. And you people, why is he like this? But that's how, yeah, it's cool with them. You know? My brother-in-law works with TCS, and he's been around for a long time. He was telling me the first time we went to the US, okay, with TCS 18 months around, right? So in the US, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you? In the US or in the West, generally, if you go out in a group, especially for the first time, everybody touches. There's no concept of I will pay the bill. Everybody pays the bill. So the first time they went, they climbed with them for a nice dinner and everything was dilly-dally and everything was brilliant. The next day he comes to the office and he an email that says $50 your share of the bill. What are you talking about? So it's a difference of culture. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to know that. Okay? You cannot be stuck to your zone of I am Indian and this is how I will look at it because it's global markets now. Yeah, so that's why we're here. So that's the reason I wanted to tell you. But you also need to know their code of hospitality continues today. They show honor, respect for women, for elderly. This is all very high esteem. So if you're walking into a shopping mall and there's a lady in a burqa there, and you've been there to walk before her, you'll be in trouble. Okay, but jokes apart, that's how the culture is. Yeah. So the brothers. As we move into the 20th century, just for you to know, Abu Dhabi is of course the richest state with all the oil power. There was a time when Abu Dhabi was not rich at all. They were dependent on pearl. Pearl is a big part of the history here. You find out when you go to the museum. And then what happened? The Japanese made some other kind of pearl, and these guys were in big trouble. They became even more poor until oil. 1962, they found oil, and then from then on, it's a different story altogether. However, Dubai has only 10% of that concentrate of oil, and therefore, Dubai has been busy building itself as a trading hub, as you can imagine now. Do you know which is the biggest port in Dubai? Jebel Ali Port. Port Rashid was the first one, Jebel Ali is the biggest one now, and they're probably building another one now, but just for your information. Also, have you heard of Qatar and Bahrain? You know it, okay. Qatar and Bahrain were supposed to be a part of the UAE at that point in time. There were discussions going on for that, but eventually they opted out and they can stay and they opted to different countries. If you would know that, just for your information, did you know that once upon a time the Indian rupee was the official currency of this region? Yes. Yeah? So in the 60s, in the early 60s, it was the Indian rupee, and then the Riyal came in, which is the Qatari Riyal, and then they found their own currency, and that's the GDP is extremely high, $25,000 US, extremely high. Do you know which is the country with the highest GDP in there? So that's good. And of course, this is the new Dubai for you, and we saturate. But the point is, it's in a very short span of time, I think this country has been able to progress. Clearly, there is a vision, and which is commendable. Some quick facts about Dubai. You might know it, you might not know it. If you don't know it, take a look at it. Just for your information, in 1968, there were only 13 plate numbers in Dubai. After that, there were no cars, so there were no plate numbers, as opposed to what it is today. Dubai has 20% of the world's cranes, to the extent that there is a joke that the national bird of Dubai is a crane. Skyscrapers, of course, you know there's no skyscrapers here, but very interestingly, until 1991, the only skyscraper in Dubai was the World Trade Center. From 1979 to 1991, they had one skyscraper. And now from 1991 to 2013, in a span of a decade, you've seen what's happening. That's how, to the extent that sometimes people say that the vision of the Sheikh Mohammed here is so good that he runs it like a company, and they call it Dubai Inc. I'm sure you've read articles on that as well. Some more interesting facts about Dubai. Dubai's population has tripled in 20 years. That's big when you're talking about demographics. Another interesting fact, and you know that by now, is 10% of Dubai's population are Marathi and 90% are expatriates, which means that out of every 10 people you walk through, you would find 9 expatriates. And also, out of those 9 expatriates that you would walk through, you would find 6 Keralites. Longest automated metro system, 75 kilometers, interesting project as well. Also, who's not been to the Dubai Mall? I thought as much, of course. Just for information, Dubai Mall, of course, is the world's largest shopping mall and has received the most number of visitors in the year 2011 in the world. So clearly a global destination, which means clearly a good management decision by you guys to have spent 1 year here. Too bad for the others sitting there. Anyway, because at the end it's all about decision making. Like I said, we moved from Dubai to GCC quickly. You need to know a flavor of GCC. I'm not going to spend too much of time on that. Except for that, GCCs, this is what GCC is all about. It's a whole lot of desert. Saudi Arabia is the biggest power there in terms of size, in terms of power, etc. because of sheer oil wealth. It was founded in 1981. Although Yemen is geographically a part of this region, politically, Yemen is still not a part of the Gulf Cooperation Council. If you've read articles recently, in the next, by the end of 2013, they say that's another 20 years, I'm not too sure, 4 of these states are going to have a unified currency, which is Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Okay? Which is very similar to the euro, for example. Not yet, UAE is not yet there, but I understand. Like I said, this is just for your reference. Saudi Arabia is the economic power here. 90% is oil exports. Qatar, of course, is not oil, it's what? You know, it's not oil for Qatar. They're very rich, but it's not oil. Sorry?
Natural gas.
Yeah, natural gas. They're the biggest exporters in the world for natural gas. They're not oil, just for your information. Kuwait is extremely conventional as well, just like Saudi Arabia, but also very oil-rich country. And Oman is sort of the, backward region there. Very beautiful country, very slow paced. I wouldn't suggest that you go to Oman for a job, especially in the first few years of your career. It's extremely slow paced. You can make a lot of money, there's nothing to do there, but do not recommend it. So if you get an offer from Oman, refuse. Unless yeah, but it's really, really slow paced. Really slow paced. Okay? Okay. Yes.
Business situation, like if I want to start a
Good. We already have an entrepreneur in the group. Can you give him a big hand? Sorry? That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Your question was? Well, first of all, you need money. Jokes apart. Business here is basically, the fundamental principle of business here has always been that you need a local sponsor. So for example, you cannot do a business as an expatriate here on your own. You need to have a sponsor, which basically means on paper, he's 49%, you're 51%, so you have to have controlling stake. It doesn't mean that he shares 49% of the profits. You can have an understanding. That was an earlier situation. For the past decade, there are economic free zones, so Jebel Ali, Internet City, TCOM, Ras Al Khaimah free zone, this place, etc. are all free zones, which means you don't need them to invest, which means you just have the fundamental paperwork that you have to do with the government, and then you start the business.
So like there are specific zones.
Yes, there are free zones, just like in India. I believe even India has free zones from a different perspective, I understand, from taxation, etc. But here it's about free zones where you do not need a sponsor, you can 100% own that company. Yes?
So, but if we want to go in retail, you have to open a shop around here. So that the shop is not in free zone. So what about that shop?
You will have to have a sponsor. You have to have. If you want to set up an office, it's fine. If you want to open a shop, where are you from, sir? That's textiles for sure. Yes, of course. Yeah, you need a sponsor to do that, yes. And retail is extremely expensive real estate here, as you can imagine. It's one of the most expensive in the world currently. The per square meter charges are extremely expensive because of the way things are. Can I move on? Okay. So, consumer trends. Consumer trends, okay. Before I even get into this, and we're going to talk about consumer trends in this region. All right, there's a disclaimer that I need to put because you're MBA students and I can understand, you always need to quote and the way you got this and the way. I haven't done any of that. I have a disclaimer. I heavily use the internet, and I heavily use the internet to mix and match and my thoughts and stuff because my fundamental point was I need to share what I need to share. So. You might have seen some of it, you might have not, or you could reference it back, it's not going to work, and I'm not there for it, so please, my apologies, Professor. But I know that that's a standard format we must do. I haven't done that. Consumer. That's where the game begins. This is a particular topic that I'm very passionate about, extremely passionate, because this is where I think you decide on what you want to do. At the end of it, my dear friends, please understand that the CEO of a company, the guy with all the fancy stuff, the guy you think doesn't work at all, and he doesn't, he is just a glorified guy. If there is no money, there is no honey. And that applies to any large corporate. Did you ever imagine that you would be embarrassed to hold a Nokia phone today? Let's face it, I don't like to hold a Nokia anymore. That was a company, and I was maybe 4 or 5 years into my professional. How the hell do I get into that company? 75% market share? Ouch, that is so nice. It's so nice to them. Where are they now? This is the way the world works. And of course, over the last many years, I'm sure you followed a number of Kodak, Nokia, the Lehman Brothers issue, so on and so forth. Sorry? Yeah, Oneida. You name it. There's lots of cases like that. So, if you're not cutting edge, and cutting edge, I realized in my 12 years that it doesn't necessarily apply to technology. If you're not cutting edge in your thought process and your decision making, you're going to have a problem as well. Okay, sometimes, at the end of the day, 5 people have to think 6 different ways. That's the theory of the way we were made. And all 6 are not going to be the right decisions. So yes, that issue is there. But the point I'm trying to come to here is you have to test yourself now as you decide whether you want to move into business development roles, whether you call it sales or marketing or which one is fancier, and we'll come back to that interesting discussion later. You have to test yourself, and the yardstick is, are you interested in the consumer? Are you interested in his mindset? So for example, if this bottle were to be red with a red label, and if I were to present it to him, would he still buy this? Would he still drink it? If this bottle was opaque, you cannot see the water, it's black in color, would he still be convinced that it's mineral water? Too many questions if you really think about it. Something as simple as water. And yet, if you really look at it, the amount of work that has gone into this bottle, do you think this bottle just took shape on its own? Somebody thought about the shape of it. Somebody thought about the text called Aquafina. Somebody thought about the name called Aquafina. Wasn't it? What a complicated situation. And yet, just a bottle of water. So you can imagine what Airbus does, or Boeing does. So that's complicated. But the point is, it all began with him, or didn't. Because there was this one company that didn't bother what he wants. and decided to make a bottle. That's one option. Then there's the other company who decided to go and ask him, my friend, if you want to drink water, can that water be like pink in color? And he said no, and he didn't make it pink because he didn't want it to be pink. So that's the other approach. And these, both the companies survived. They're all multinationals, and it happens. Forget that. Let's come back to that later. Yes.
How do you explain Apple's modeling? They did not conduct consumer research.
Who said so?
Even the iPod was an inborn.
Yeah, I agree with you. They don't. They probably don't. I wouldn't know, honestly, but I thought probably Apple is going to face something. You can already see people talking about what's this? It's longer, it's slimmer. You can't survive with that. But being that they thrived on innovation so far. They can continue to thrive on innovation because the consumer is only getting more intelligent. So if they're going to be intelligent simultaneously, they can continue to thrive. But if they don't, they could be in trouble. Is my opinion. It's not after the Nokia issue. I don't really make some suggestions. But yeah, you're right. So it is a very product-driven approach, unlike a Samsung, which I know is a very consumer-driven approach, at least for now. But anyway, so I think this is an important question because if you are passionate about all that we discussed now, then maybe you want to do a sales and marketing job because at the end it all boils down to the consumer and what the consumer does, and that's where the interesting bit is. So we're going to talk a bit about the consumer trends in this region of the Middle East, and this is pit stop. Okay, so when pit stop happens, we have to stop discussing, and then we just get into a pit stop because it's like have you been to the Grand Prix anywhere? In Abu Dhabi, how many people have been to the Grand Prix? Somewhere in India, whatever. Okay, it's very exciting. Yeah, it blows your ears off, but it's very exciting. So it's a pit stop because you need to take out 8 seconds out. A pit stop will basically be a teaser, something to sort of tickle your brains, smile if you want to. If you don't want to, it's okay. It could be a joke, it could be a video, you never know. So let's find out what we have now. Okay, this is the first pit stop. It's a quick story. It's an interesting one, so I put it in here. You might know it. If you know it, that's okay. It's a story of 2 shoe salesmen who were sent to Africa. Both of them went there and found out that the Africans don't really wear shoes. And then one came back and said, this place has no opportunity because they don't wear shoes. And the other one said, my God, this place is full of opportunity. Nobody wears shoes. So you see the difference in perspective? And I just thought I should share that. So that's the first pit stop for you. Moving on, Middle Eastern consumer. The Middle Eastern consumer, and this is according to Ernst & Young, so it's researched, I'm sure you might have seen it, but if you've not, just take a look. The yellow bars are the Middle East people, and the grey bars are is global tendency. If you look at the yellow bars, the question is basically to what level does brand reputation or image influence purchasing? Brand is important, right? When we buy our shoes or our whatever, we do look at brands, right? And that is important, but looks like in this region, it is much more than global trends. It's good for you to know that. So, according to Ernst & Young, 25% of respondents in the United Kingdom and the US stated that brand influences, but in this region you see that's 29, 31, 33 in Bahrain. So it's very, very important here. And that is why you see all these big brands thriving in those shopping malls that you've been to, the Louis Vuitton, the Hugo Boss and whatnot. Yeah? So that's an interesting perspective that is researched for this region, is for you to know. Another trend, brand loyalty, depending on what kind of industry it is. Looks like for clothes, brand is very important. Food and beverages, very strangely, it's important. Drugs, of course, consumer electronics. So these are the categories of the usual FMCG, FMCD kind of products. It's very, very important for this region. I would imagine, more or less, I'm not too good with the Indian market, so I wouldn't be able to comment, but I would imagine that slowly there is a sector in India that is moving in the same lines as this region as well. Yeah. Oops, another pit stop. Okay, this time the pit stop I think is a video. So what I have done is, friends, I've just taken these things that are interesting. You know, it could be an ad sometimes, but it's time for us to think. We're going to really be thinking sales and marketing today. So these pit stops, these videos that I put here are basically little ads that I've put in. And the reason I put it is sometimes because an ad is sort of just the best ad in the world in some of this thing. But the concept is for you to really understand how they did it. You know, the communication of that ad is, I think, what is key. So I want us to see the video and then quickly spend like a minute or two in quick comments of what you thought about that ad. If it is an ad, I'm not too sure. There's much more than that, I think. But let's see. Speakers are on. Okay, we can test it. It's okay.
Day and night, I am waiting. Are you asking for a beating? Under your love, I keep fainting. And if you die, you'll make me cry. Your naughty thoughts make me shy. Spicy red chili or crunchy potato chips का धमाकेदार combination. Bingo red chili between chips. Bingo, no confusion, clean combination.
What do you think? How many of you have seen that before? Oh, English publication. But anyway, that's fine. It doesn't matter. I was particularly, it's not about showing you something, but it's about discussing. Let's spend 2 minutes on that. Okay, and I want to, in my eyes, I can see 3 segments. One part and second part. Somebody from the, why did you like this ad? I'm not talking about from a consumer. Okay, let's talk about it from as a consumer. Were you happy with that ad? Did it make you think that I want to buy that product? Who's going to volunteer? That's such a sad story. The managers of tomorrow. Come on, I should have seen all those hands out there. Yes, my friend here, manager. I'm going to refer to him that because he volunteered. Your name, sir? Rahul. Yes, Rahul.
So the bottom line was that no confusion fake combination, and they reinforces it when the pocket gets fired.
Right.
So that's how whatever they said it get connected. Whatever.
So as a consumer, did it make you want to take a look at that product? If you like the spice, for example, or are you saying this as a manager, as a sales and marketing professional? Which one? Yes.
So as a consumer, I would say that it directly hits that yes, it's spicy. So if I wanted a spicy thing,
Yes.
then it will go okay. It's spicy chips.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. One second. Let me just finish this segment here. I want to comment as a marketing manager. For example, if you were the marketing manager of your company and your agency pitches this ad to you, would you say yes, let's go with it? And if you would say yes, why would you do so? Who can do that for you? Yes, sir. Your name first, just for me.
My name is Ashish.
Yes, Ashish.
As a marketing manager, I would recommend this ad to go ahead with.
Yeah.
Because the message is very clear. It's very comprehensive that if you like the spicy taste,
Yeah.
the spice is there in the chips. So
Yeah.
consumer will like it.
Would you have recommended though that they need to sort of zoom in on the packet of chips a little earlier than before? Just for me to know.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Yes, sir. Yes. 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 Right. So you would prefer, so we...
As a consumer,
Okay, as a marketing manager? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Then why did they have to do all that? I mean, I'm just being a devil's advocate, so you know. Why did they have to do all that drama? They were just showing the chips and saying it's spicy and just kept zooming on the chips. Can we have one discussion? How's the rules?
so you need to show something that
Attention. It was attention seeking. Yes.
How many ads about food products are actually about food?
Right.
But Domino's
Yes,
is about
yes.
getting rid of their family, not really about food.
So if you were a marketing manager, you would say go with it. And if you were a marketing manager, you would fire those models and you would say zoom in to the chips. Give me the chips. There's nothing wrong with that, huh? You never know. If he were a marketing manager, my friends, in Russia, that's what you need to learn as an example. So, it's complicated. Neither are you wrong, or neither is he right kind of a situation. Yes? Can you speak a little loudly, if you don't mind, for the... Yeah, my God, don't do this. yeah. Yes, therefore you need this attention seeking. That's your point. Good. What about this segment? What? Yes.
But in the context of the Asian market,
Yes.
the ad was give like 9 or 10 because it was very different, very unique.
What are you speaking here as?
As a marketer.
Okay.
If I were shown this ad, I would really go for it because it was very unique. It gave the idea that yes, it's spicy and made the message. And yes, we had 2-second zoom in on the chip, so we know what brand it is. It's not Lay's, it's not other chips. It is
So you would give it a go. They wouldn't have to pay you on the table. Okay, brilliant. Yes.
Sir, I would think that this is they did the right thing. Why? Because if I have seen the bingo packet in the initial stages, I would think that this is a one more food item and because they didn't show the I was attracted to the ad. What is going to come? I don't know. And suddenly.
So because you will already lose off, it's another food ad. In this case, because you're still wondering what is going to two people, you're still trying to sit and watch. Okay, what's the end of what's the climax here? I think that was really the hook there, right? Okay. Yeah.
I think a more important part is the music that was playing in the background.
Yes, a
But that's what
combination. Absolutely. I fully agree. It's really a combination. Okay, this is an interesting discussion. I just want to understand one thing here, and it's perfectly fine. In this group, as of today, who knows as of now, it's okay to change your decision date, as of now, as of today, that you want to go into a sales and marketing domain? Just for me to get a feel. Okay. And who knows that they want to be in the HR domain? Okay. What about those gentlemen there? Sorry? Finance, of course. How can you forget finance? No finance, nothing happens. We'll come back to that important point. I just want to mention something about finance from my experience, which might be a good insight for you as you mind. Finance, very, very strong. Okay, can you move on? Are we done with the bingos? Or we want to spice it up? Some more about consumer trends. Okay, this is important. It's a little academic, but I think it's good to know because it's about this region. So if you want to learn something and tell your friends back at home. This is really about the Middle East and North Africa region. Just for your information, this region is more called Middle East and North Africa. If you see a lot of companies here, would MENA companies rather than MEA companies. Do you know why? It's MENA as in Middle East and North Africa, and a lot of companies, and some companies are MEA, which is Middle East and Africa. So many companies prefer just to take the North African segment and plug it onto their business. Do you know why? Can somebody tell me that? Yes. Sorry? Proximity, not so much. It's really far. Culture, language, etc., etc. That's what. So sometimes businesses are also grouped based on language. Like in our company in Canada, we have our regions split as French speaking and Arabic speaking, or English understanding kind of company. So West African countries like Ivory Coast, is French speaking. So that is important, which is why you find a lot of regional offices here handling North Africa. Just for information. And importantly, consumer trends also therefore reflect from North Africa as well. So you would find studies which is sort of MENA oriented. This is the MENA consumer that's just described here. And I didn't describe it. Ernest and Young did. Okay, so it's really researched well and it's good for us to know. Number one, it's important to know what is the issue with the consumer. In India it's even more complicated because depending on the demographic situation, the consumer keeps changing. So here it looks like the consumer is like a chameleon. What is the chameleon? Color changing, ever changing preference. This is a big issue. if he comes and says, I didn't want pink water, and I said, no problem, and I make white water, and by the time I go back to him and say, I want pink water, and I'm in trouble. Because I just invested in white water because he told me he wanted white water. You get my point? But this is an issue. And this is, you cannot just slap him on the face because he is your customer. And customer is king, right? There was another saying that I saw recently in the internet that says customer is king, but kings don't ask for discount. Somebody's put on a shop, very smart guy. So, chameleon, the Meena customer is a chameleon. You cannot trust the guy. Brands are increasingly likely to influence the purchasing decision of the Meena customer. We saw that because in this region, the importance of brand is very, very high. Okay, so you need to spend on brand equity. Personalized communication and service is very high priority in this region, which means people are really looking for more personalized service, but having social media and stuff like that, it does make it easy. And the other problem is the consumer is much more intelligent than before because he already knows the product because of the internet, he knows the price, he can check the prices globally, he knows if there's inventory available, he knows a lot of things before he's come for the purchase. So you really have a little scope to engage him. Just imagine the shop floor where you have multiple multinational brands, so the equity is taken care of. And yet, every product, the application is similar. Everybody wants to sell. When the customer's already done his homework. It's a very difficult situation. Whether it's a toothpaste or a camera or a mobile phone, it is a difficult situation. Right? And that's why companies today, more so, and people like Hindustan Lever, etc., have always put these tools because you really have to think. Like I said, it goes back to the same theory. The thinking also needs to be cutting edge. It's all about people today. It's not about production. We'll come back to that. So, this is what the study says. And then last but not the least, they want to feel empowered. When the bottle with the white water comes back to him, he wants to feel, this is based on my feedback. This is why you see brands getting more and more engaged into road shows. I'm sure even in India, in the malls and here and there, they want to engage with you. Because somewhere, actually what is happening is that you feel you're partnering with the brand, and the next time you walk into the shop and think of buying something, you're going to buy the partner brand. Important to know, and this is more or less directly proportional to your job opportunity because the next few years are going to be big in this region. Looks like, especially again with the expo, there's definitely a point that I have to go and stay in the mountains now because of heights and events. That's a different story, but apart from that, bad news. It's going to be brilliant here. Can you imagine that the retail market is estimated to grow at accumulated growth rate of 8.3, 240 billion US dollars of retail market in this region is extremely huge, my friends. You cannot imagine how huge that is because it's not such a big place. It's not the United States. It's extremely huge, which means there's a lot of opportunity. Which means there's a lot of more ads going to be created. That's spicy. Looks like. Yeah? So, good choice. Good decision. When it came and take it because there is opportunity. Now, the point is, now we understood the consumer. Can we have those 5 parameters of consumers quickly? There's a chameleon there. Yes?
Personalized communication.
Yes? 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 Thank you. So if we know the customer, then we better decide based on that. What is the implication going to be on our business now? I know my customer and I'm going to make a business plan. The implication of business, you have to find out a way to engage them. Road shows, etc. as an example. You have to make service personalized. Okay? You have to provide end-to-end brand experience. Why do you think the store looks the way it looks? Because if it didn't look the way it looked, then you wouldn't buy a Louis Vuitton at the price, at a crazy price. I always tell my wife, not that she has one, I never buy one. But you have to give Louis Vuitton a look at me. You know, a Louis Vuitton shop, if you're not even properly dressed and you had money with it, you wanted to generally buy, you still wouldn't step into that shop. Because the guy at the front, the stud, the Lebanese good-looking gel guy standing there, he looks so extremely well-groomed that you, oh, okay, I'll come back later. But that's the experience. You want to have that. When you're spending, you know, 10,000 dirhams, that's a lakh, I mean, whatever, 1.7 lakh rupees or whatever today's exchange rate, you don't want to have somebody like me stand and say, no, look, what's it, that's good. No, that's not the experience, right? That's the point. That, my friends, is interesting for us to know. You know what the whole problem is? I read somewhere, again, what is discovery? Invention is one. We know what invention is. There's something called discovery. Discovery is what? It's not, it was always there, but it's there. Discovery is the ability to look at something that you've been always looking at, right? But see something different. And that's what we should start doing now. It applies to the guy who thinks that this is none of my ball game. I don't care whether bingo is spicy or sweet because I'm the finance guy. No. And I will come back to that. It's totally not. You need to know that as well. And I'm not saying you don't. Just putting the point. Irrespective of, and this is my opinion, in my experience of what I've seen, irrespective of what function you are, you need to have that ability to take a look at that other angle to it. Okay? What would happen if that Lebanese guy was replaced with somebody like me? Why is it that way? You know? And you must discuss it, is my point. Yeah, so that is key. So providing an end-to-end brand experience, delivering. I'll give you another example. Sorry, who has the Samsung S4 and S3 and S4, S5, whatever you call it? Yeah, you have it. So how many more? Is it just one? Oh my God, Samsung will come here fast. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. What's the color of your case? Yeah. Okay. Can I have that if you don't mind? I'm not going to open it, I swear. Look at this color. Where's yours? Who's the other one who has it? That's there. And who's the other one? I'm not going to take it. Just show it to me. Can we see it? Okay. Look at this. They all have. She probably likes here. I'm sure you do. Or I don't know. Yeah, irrespective. But she's been able to personalize this to the way she is as a personality or he is as a personality. That's a part of that experience. If Samsung wouldn't have thought, they probably could have not thought of it as well, right? With the cover and with the way it was. But it's a part of that whole 360 degree of engagement, thank you, that they want to have as a consumer. And that is a small point, but it's an important one. And it is not as small. There are lots of people thinking about it. There are whole companies thinking about this. Yeah, and that's good for us to know. So it's about making consumers business partners, opening up R&D funnels to consumers, which is basically the interaction and all that stuff. So these are those things that we might need to do, irrespective of the market. That's basically the point. Okay. Are you tired? Yes? If you are, that's okay. Or are you managers or what are you? Yeah. Yes. 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 That's only because they have a lot of money right here. I can actually prove to you, yeah, you know, it is true what you're saying. Okay, there are two issues here. Yeah, just to share her point. Her point is, she's noticed in an exhibition like the Gitex where the Europeans, like or the Americans, Westerners basically, and the Asians come and haggle for pricing and specifications, while as the Arab would come in and they say, oh, Allah, give me the best one, yaki. That's what they do. But that's true, and there's two reasons for it. I was here in 1978, what did you expect? What is about the money? It is about the money. The pay scales are the key. So if you were, let's say, a marketing manager in a company in a few years from now, and the same local person who is also have to have a completely different scale, but that's the way they take care of their citizens. Would you like expatriates in India fighting with your own employer? If you want to say, I wouldn't mind, that's a very good answer. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Can you imagine that they're seeing 9 out of 10 are expatriates? They need to be taken care of, right? And when people tell me about this, how come they're, I said, it's absolutely perfect. It's absolutely, because that's the way the government is, let's say, pensioning them. Yeah, they should. It's okay according to me, but coming back to the laptop story, that is fundamentally the issue. Just for you to know, a very interesting example, I was once in Saudi Arabia. It's even more conventional market, even more, much more. I was standing at the floor, camera business, is one of camera business. I was on a market visit. There was this Arabic lady who came to the floor and said, Habibi, hada, ji, wahat. She was taking, there was a pink, there was a gold, there was a silver, there was a blue, and whatever color. 5 cameras, 5 different colors. She took one of each and said, give me. And she just took it and went. So that is also consumer. Because she probably wanted to match it with her clothes or. Yeah, maybe. It's debated. Could have been. Yes. 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 You know what's the not complex thing about Dubai? This is really a melting pot. Whether you will come from the Netherlands and I from India and somebody else will fuck you. At this moment where you have to understand that habits, it's really not about nationality. It's about your lifestyle. If you are from the West and I'm from India and he's from somewhere else, at the end of the day, the lifestyle that we all go through is the same. The places we shop are similar. The food, therefore, we eat are more or less similar over a period of time. Right? And everything we do is very, very similar because what you have in the West is not available for you completely here, not for him if he's from somewhere else, let's say Japan, and not completely for me. So there is a sort of melting pot effect. As a result of which, in my opinion, it's less complex. Because people are looking out for the same. It would be different game. See, it depends on what, again, I should be wrong because I'm talking about this here. We're talking about FMCG, like, toothpaste or something of that sort, then that's a different situation altogether. But generally, just for you to know, when marketing communication is done in this region, as in any other region, the fundamental customer mass that is kept in mind are Asian and Arabs and Westerners. Then it becomes very less complex. So there are communications that is aimed at looking at Arab, because that's easy, whether you're from Lebanon or UAE or from Morocco. West is West, and then Asians are Asians. So the rest of the Asians, when I say, I'm talking about the South Asians, not really Southeast Japanese or so that's how they segment it. So it's not so complex.
Dubai is actually less of the
Yes.
There are more Arabs.
India.
Dubai has
True.
less Arabs than everybody else.
True.
So the same company, like your company,
Yes.
they have marketing.
Yes.
Or let's say that.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when you're doing, let's say, below the line marketing, like what you want to see in the shop, will be very different in a country like Saudi. It has to be on the face and has to be priced, for example. In Dubai, it can be more sophisticated. I'm talking more in terms of, television commercials and print media. It would more or less region because you have to run it regionally. When you run it on NBC, everybody sees it, right, as an example. So it's based on West, Arabs, and Asians, more or less. Yes.
What do you do then? Because it's the same point. The people you're looking at have very, very different perspectives. So how to sell that laptop?
See, I think everything has to have a common line. Now, in the case of a laptop, I don't think there's any other way at the end of the day to sell it through the specifications. And there's no other way because people are so much more exposed to the internet. They are looking at specifications. The only difference might be that when the Westerner walks into the floor, you don't need to spend time with him. He comes and picks up his laptop and goes because he's done all that research. With the case of the Arab, he might have or he might have not done his research because he's highly oriented toward personalized service. I want somebody coming and speaking to me. Why is this guy not even doing? There are instances that I've noticed on the shop floor where he spends like 10 seconds and the poor promoter, merchandiser, whatever you call him, is busy with somebody. 10 seconds is what he gives, and then he switches and walks to the next line. Because he didn't get attention in the first 10 seconds that he was there. Very, very demanding. And for the same reason, if you get him on that first 10 seconds, very, very easy to convert customer as well. That is the brilliance of the Arab customer. Yeah.
I'd like to add to that point that while we have participated in GITEX,
yes.
and interestingly I noticed that it was difficult to sell to Arabs, not Emiratis, I'm not promoting Emiratis, but
Yes.
Arabs.
Yes.
It was more difficult to sell to them because they were extremely price conscious.
Yes, yeah.
They are more price conscious than
Yes,
Indians.
yes. Let's very clearly classify the Arab into the expatriate Arabs, who are very similar to us, especially in the current situation of regional unrest where the money is a big issue for them. And let's talk about the BCC, let's say, Gulf Coast. That's two classes. The Arabs are just like us, if not worse, in some situations. Yeah, also just for you to know, as a pointer, GITEX is a place where people believe they must ask for price. That's another point. So it really depends. Okay, so we're going to move on a little more. Yes.
So I just wanted to know, like, when it comes to technical products,
Yes.
consumers' opinion, how much does it matter? Because sometimes technical specifications, for example, camera, what consumer basically looks for is just megapixels in a camera, but there is much more to a camera when you are purchasing it. So how do you deal with it?
This is a very interesting point because this is an issue that I faced when I was heading UAE in 2011. Canon has the best cameras, no doubt on that. But Canon is generally a very, let's say, Sada company in terms of it doesn't like to do these things of just putting up megapixels, etc. That's a different history altogether. Forget it. The point is, we were in a situation in 2011 where all the other competition had like 18 and 16 and huge megapixels, and we had like a 10 and a 12. Because generally you don't require more than that. And then in this situation where everybody was coming and asking, we actually ran a campaign that said, don't buy megapixels, buy a camera. Okay? So it is tough because you have to, these are the kind of products where you have to really spend a lot of time on the shop floor training and the resources in the shop floor because they are the ones who can make or break the game. But it is true that there is an issue with these products where you cannot, as an example, you cannot run a bingo ad on a camera and convince somebody to buy it. There's no ways. Why did you think that Sachin is the ambassador for Canon in India or Priyanka Chopra for Nikon as an example? It's only because this endorsement sometimes leads to a certain amount of loyalty, so they apply that. But otherwise, technical products, it's very, very difficult, right? And that's why today, online digital marketing and all that is getting more and more important. Because it's not enough to see something on the television for us anymore. It's important for us to know what the others are saying about it. When I want to buy a laptop or a camera, just because I saw a newspaper ad that says this is a brilliant camera, I don't think so. I'm going to log on to my Twitter or my Facebook or whatever, or most importantly, I'm going to Google it, go to a blog site that talks about it, just like we do for travel as an example, and go to find out. So if the brand can do something about it to influence it, and more brands are doing it today, then that's where you're doing this. A very difficult one, but a very important. Okay, we are going to move into sales and marketing a little more, and this movement is going to go into the FMCG and the FMCG industry because of two reasons. One, because that's the only industry I know of. That's one. But more importantly than that, if you really look at sales, there are only two kinds of sales. One is, I come and sell this product and say, it's X price, please buy it, direct sales. Or I give it to my stockist or distributor, they take 10 of these, please distribute, which is indirect sales. There's nothing beyond that, there's no rocket science. Sales only of 25%. And in indirect sales, FMCG is the biggest industry. What else can be there? Sorry, it's not FMCG is the biggest sector. Nothing else. There is clothes and shoes and all that. They're all small. So it's all in the same equation. But sorry. So let's just quickly clarify what we're talking about here. There's FMCG and FMCD. Are we clear? This is debatable. It's just like ATL and BTL. You know, this is a very debatable topic. Why? Because ATL, what is ATL? Yeah? You know what ATL is? Or somebody doesn't know what ATL is? It's okay not to know. Everybody knows or everybody does not know what's happening in the school of management. Be school leaders. Yeah, there's nothing in between. Decide. You don't know. Anyway, above the line is ATL. Below the line is BTL. Above the line is television, is newspaper, everything that is mass. Below the line is when you walk into the floor and somebody put a sticker saying 20% extra or something to make you buy. That's below the line, on the floor. The point is, this whole concept of what is above the line, what is below the line is a big discussion because this is a term created by agencies, by marketing agencies. Okay, and it's been there for years and it's remained. Sometimes there are people who say that radio is BTL. Radio, according to me, is ATL. Okay, so there's a whole confusion. Similarly, FMCG and FMCD also sometimes there's a confusion. If you Google it as an example, you will find cameras under FMCG. I don't agree with that. FMCG is basically stuff that is perishable, has a shelf life, and moves fast, really fast, like toothpaste, like toothpicks, like shampoo, like whatever. FMCG is fast moving, but they are durables, so I'll be clear on that. Just thought I will clear that. But they both have something that is common. What is that? Yes, they are fast moving. They have some, that's a good point. But apart from the fact that they're fast moving, and for the reason that it's fast moving, there is something common in that. In the way the sales is done. Can somebody tell me what is that? Sorry? Volume is one, but what kind of sales? Sorry? Over the shelf. I described two kinds of sales. So, can we have direct sales operation, set up a company and say, let's sell directly the shampoos to the customer. Let's just do that. Can we do that? There was a company who used to do that. Can somebody tell me? It's actually indirect. Actually, the whole networking concept, my friends, is they're fooling you to become a bloody stockist. Sorry, that's what they're doing. Isn't it? The networking is a way of indirect distribution. There was Unico Fox, if you remember, the vacuum cleaner guys. They come into one gully and then they split and then they. That was a form of direct sales and they were very successful. But that was a time period when volumes and margins were distributed out together. We'll talk about that, finance guys. Finally, we're talking margins and profits and all that, something that we like to hear. We come back to that very important point. Because if there's no money, so those guys are very important. Very. One of the lessons you will learn later in your career is the first person to please when you are an organization in a particular level is who? The finance guy. So, and they really act wisely as well. You know, you want to, but that's how the equation is. It's a very complicated matrix. But anyway, coming back to that, the characteristic and why that FMCG and FMCD can be discussed in the same platform is because the kind of business is the same. It's volume, it's indirect, it's less profitability. Do you know when they sell one pack of cigarettes in India, what kind of margin they make? Any idea? Sorry? 1.5%? No, my friends, it's much below that to the extent that it's actually more profitable for them to sell a single cigarette out of that packet. If you get what I'm saying. Okay? But it's okay because cigarette sells in the millions. So the concept is whether I want to make 10% out of 100 or if I want to make 1% out of At the end, the effect is the same. Sorry? Point.
So there is no need for marketing in
That's what you think. No. You know what? Okay. Hold on. You know what? This is something important. And this is something that I have learned the hard way in my 12 years. Never laugh away a comment from somebody. Because there just might be an insight in that. And I'm serious about what I'm saying. So let's just pick on this guy's point. Our friend Rahul, right? Sorry? I'm all when you think I can remember all these names. Did I do something wrong? You say that you don't need to market cigarettes, right? Interesting point. Why do you say that? Because it's cigarette you would use in any case.
people, consumers are generally addicts.
Okay, my friend. Let's just create a new brand called Ritika. It's branded Ritika. And we're going to give this brand to you, my friend, but tomorrow you have to start selling it. How would you do it? There's Marlboro, there's Gandhi, and there's Ritika in the chef now. How do we handle that? It's the non-market chef.
There are established brands in the market.
How did let me hold you here. How did that brand get established? Yes. You think they were just born with that? They were not. There's something's done hard work around it. Interesting insight. Christmas is around the corner. How many of you don't know Santa Claus? Okay, thank you very much. No, I'm just checking Ghaziabad. Because I've never been there. I don't know. What's the color code of Santa Claus? Red and white. Yeah. You know where that came from? No. Red and white. You know where that came from? You think, sorry? Who designed the Santa Claus's dress? It wasn't Louis Vuitton. It's actually his red and white is because of Coke. You can Google it, look it up. But one Christmas, see, in the US, Christmas is a very important. Brands can make or break during Christmas because people decide on a few gifts for that year, and then everybody buys the same thing. It's called the Christmas gift of the year. Something of that sort, sort of like a cultural thing. So anyway, one of those Christmas campaigns, this Santa Claus, who really didn't have a dress code, they gave him the Coke red and white, and then they dressed him up. And then ever since, but it's so synonymous today with Santa Claus that most of us don't even know that that's where it came from. That's the power of marketing, my dear friend, Mr. Non-Marketing. So you still don't know how you're going to market this brand. Think about it. That is the issue. It's not about a question and answer. We're not expecting an answer from you, but think about it. Yes?
One of my brother was in Philip Morris.
Yes.
So what I got to know from him was that marketers actually invest in getting the name on those Manwadi shops.
Yes.
For the Marlboro.
Yes.
That actually brings out the name.
Yes.
And they participate in events to promote
Yes.
the brand. So that's actually marketing.
I spent 5% of my annual budgets for Saudi Arabia on billboards. Not billboards, boards, dealer boards.
Yeah. That's actually marketing for them.
Yeah. You spend money to do that. You go to the dealer and say, you know what? Can I take care of your board? I will spend on it, I will maintain it, I will pay the taxes or whatever, and you take it to your brand. It's also right. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
So in this marketing world, as taking an example of Canon, there is a lot of cannibalization.
Yes.
There is a lot of products that are being created by Canon.
Yes.
So how do you stop this cannibalization from one product to market as another product?
You really can't. Honestly speaking, you really can't. And it's a good point you brought out. If I were to take from my experience in Canon, today our industry, see, Canon in this region, as for cameras, we hold 60% market share for the big camera, DSLR. We have about 30% market share for the small camera, and yet we are really struggling with our profitability and top line. Only because of the same reason of cannibalization, because this whole concept of that yellow phone, you know, deciding to take the photos for her even in the wedding, which wasn't the case a few years before, it's a big issue. And there is where this whole theory of cutting edge products becomes important. If you really look at Samsung as an example, the way Samsung operates is they go vertically in and horizontally through as well. So you will see them continuously developing products this way. So an LCD became an LED, became a smart TV, became or whatever is going to become ultra UHD TV is one route, but at the same time they go S4 and laptops and gear. Very intelligent, if you ask me. And in my opinion, in the next 5 years' time, the only consumer brand, or one of the only consumer brands around, will be the Koreans. Like the likes of LGs and Samsung, because of this diversification. Because the problem again is that consumer is getting more and more intelligent today. That is the issue, right? Shall I move on? Now comes the interesting bit. The whole theory of sales. Sales? Come on. Who wants to be in marketing? I want to create two teams here quickly in three seconds like. Marketing guys raise your hands and sales guys raise your hands. So marketing first. Marketing first. You were a finance guy like you are. Okay, marketing, how many? Can we take a quick count like a 2, 4, like a 6, 8? Okay, get a feel. Sales? Oh, this is interesting. Now I'm confused because I have more hands than before who's not in either. Let's switch to finance after this session. Is it? Or, okay, fine, no problem. So there is, let's hear a summary. Okay, who is, give me a marketing person. Who raise your hands here now? Marketing, who's the marketing guy? Yeah.
I'm for sales.
You're for sales. I'll get back to you then. Yes, why do you want to be in marketing? You don't have to work, sorry. Have you worked so far? You have not worked, so which is fine. We all started somewhere. You haven't worked so far, and you have decided, or you want, or you've chosen that you want to be marketing. Tell us the top 3 reasons, and if you do the 4th, then we take you outside the room. 3 reasons of why you want marketing. It can be anything. Huh? Let me tell you one thing again. This whole thought process about laughing at each other's opinions is never right. Not because the other person feels bad, but because there's always an insight in it. Because you know what? I've realized in my 12 years that there was a phase in my life where I was running behind money. Then there was a phase in my life where I was running behind that I needed to be the manager. I'm executive. I want to be a manager. I want to be a manager. That's all. I don't want the money. I want the designation. Then when the designation came, I wanted the money. Then when that came, I wanted a team, a larger team. Then when that came, I wanted a P&L. So it keeps changing. And it's perfectly fine. It has to change. Because different people make the world. It's fine. A CEO of a company could be a CEO of a company because he loves the power, not the money. He loves the respect, not the money. Which is fine. So it means you can say whatever you want to in your top 3, but let it be honest. Because if it's honest, it makes a good discussion.
The reason I want to go into marketing is firstly because you get to actually design and actually discuss and decide and be more creative and you're not judged by numbers.
Right, creativity, yeah. Not judged by numbers. Yeah. Reason number 1.
Second would be, actually I haven't thought of 3 reasons.
Okay, you can say 2, that's fine.
Now you think about the consumer as you're not directed by someone that you have to go and set these many numbers. You actually think about the consumer, what they want.
Okay.
Design products and create products based on
creativity and thinking about the consumer is what drives you. By the way, before a campus placement, think of one more. They might ask for 3. Okay. Who was that sales guy? I found. Yeah. Okay. Who was the salesperson? Yeah. The gentleman in white shirt. Why do you want sales?
Before a market, I need to know the consumer, and if you want to know the consumer, you have to go and sell. because then you will get to know the real, then you get the real feel of it, because then he'll tell you what he wants.
You like the feel of being customer facing.
Yes, I want to face the customer to know him.
Okay. You don't need to give more than that. You've given 3 answers now. Perfect. It's the answer, okay? Any more? Something to share? Marketing, sales? Anything that's different from what they said, then please share it. Or the benefits of the larger group. Is there something somebody was not thinking about? No. So this more or less covers it. Yes?
So understanding the market and
Understanding the marketplace. Yes, agreed. So as you can see, this whole thing is quite overlapping. It's the story of the chicken and egg. It's really the story of the chicken and egg. And for that same reason, I need to tell you something. In India, it's okay, but here you need to be careful. In India, the companies are extremely professional. The ones who recruit, especially from campuses like institutes, they know what they're doing. Okay? But when you come here, if you come here and you're looking for a job, I must warn you that the companies here are not completely aware of the way it is. Which means that you might just attend an interview that says marketing executive or assistant marketing manager, and when you go and sit on your chair, that you've been asked to sell potatoes, as an example. Let's say it's a potato making company. So, wasn't this a marketing role? How come this is a sales role? Because you said it's marketing. The job description said it's market products, but you said so. You know, there is a risk, so you have to, it's changing now. Multinationals here don't really have that problem, but you must understand that even when you're looking at job prospects, it's not necessarily that you might look at multinationals, because the percentile of multinationals are very small, and there are very huge business houses that are local companies like Alphatem, for example. It is a very strong company. So similarly, there are, for your information, Alphatem is a very professional company, so they wouldn't make that mistake. But I'm just saying, you have to watch out in this region of this differentiation, because it just depends on the line manager and what destination you goes, or maybe you have done HR. You never know. Yeah, in India, it doesn't really happen, especially with people. But the point is, this is really complicated and it's a little overlapping. But just for the benefit of our discussion, let us classify this purely into marketing and sales. Why we want to do that is because, yes, you are right, these are 2 different functions and there are 2 different competencies required for this. Therefore, your preferences could be different and it doesn't matter. Just for the records, I have been so passionate about the marketing job ever since I started working 12 years before. I wanted to make sure I stay away from sales. I want to be marketing, I want to be sales on set. I don't want to be in sales. And when I finally got my first job, it was a sales job. Fortunately for me, in 6 months' time, I got shifted back into marketing and I enjoyed my job. Creativity, making that, making this, I just loved it. Okay? Today, I'm back in the sales job. But I'm not as unhappy as before because I realized that there's no way out, and at some point in your time, you have to handle sales because the CEO is a glorified sales guy. At the end of the day, whether you call it agency or bingo or spicy chips, etc., it's about the cost of this product, how much I sell it to somebody else, therefore how much profit I make. Out of that profit, how much of salary I give my staff, how much of salary I give for the transportation, and all those profit before tax and profit after tax issues, and how much is my bottom line. So there is no escape, my friends. Absolutely no escape. This is good news for the sales guys, because they say, I told you so, I told you so. I know. And this is bad news for the marketing guys, because at the end of the day, it's not necessary. You can retire as the director of marketing, right? What did you think was marketing all about? You thought marketing was all about advertising? My friend, the people who hold the P&L in a company, for your information, is not the salespeople. It is the marketing people. The product marketing is the people in charge of the P&L. So, what you're talking about is only the marketing communications part of it, the creativity part. That's only one small part of marketing. The real marketing director is the guy whose head will first roll if the company goes into a loss. So now can I see the hands raised for number of sales? So that's for you to know, because the salespeople are those smart cookies who can face the customer and convince based on this product, because the product might not necessarily be the best products in the world, right? We use so many products in the world. How can every product be the best? But it's because of that gentleman in the white shirt there, that handsome young guy, you are. Okay. It's because of that competent salesperson that the sale is happening. And that's why we need the customer facing that. Because the customers that have it, really love it. When you look at yourself, because you yourself are the customer. ये कितने का है? 10 का। 8 में क्यों नहीं? वहाँ पे तो 9 पे है। What are you doing? Did you think that you did not have that 10 in your pocket? You walked in and you were ready to pay 15. It's just that feel that you get, that I feel important, isn't it? Isn't it? So this customer is stuck. So if you don't have competent guys who would face that customer and say, hey sir, whatever. Just for you to know, this is real life. I read it in a blog. Hindustan Liver is the best company you can get into in your campus placement, and I don't need to tell that. Because of the reason that Hindustan Liver is liver, so it becomes a big, for a sales and marketing guy, it's a big plus on your CV. But also because they will kill you the first 4-3 years, which means you're learning. Every time you get killed, you are learning. When you drove your bike or car for the first time and crashed it, and you were so nervous about it, it was only because you were learning. So my friends, the other lesson, from my own experience, that whenever you face difficult moments at the office or in work life, do not quit, because if you're facing difficulty, it means you're going up. You're only learning. You're only learning. So it's cool. Coming back to the points, where was I? This week. Yeah. So the sales and marketing thing. So marketing really is the profit holder. I will show you that quickly. And sales is customer facing. Yeah, I was talking about Unilever. So Unilever had a campus placement in some B school. The divisional managers or whatever are sitting on the panel. They're looking at the CVs and all that's happening. Suddenly one of the senior divisional managers says, "Ye sab chhod. Sabse kamina kaun hai isme? Isko bula." It was a sales job. So that is the competence, because a sales guy really requires a skill set, because you really have to be a mina in that sense, if you know what I mean, street smart, to be able to manage that situation. So there is a different skill set in marketing and in sales. If you're not ready to face that difficult art, I forgive my terrible Hindi, it only has to do with the fact that I come from Kerala. The fact that it's for 8 rupees should just being asked like that, when it's a difficult situation, requires a competency, so then you decide what you want to be. And then the fact that if you're in marketing, it's not just about bingo chips, it's also about profitability, then you decide. That's the whole equation as we stand here. So what is the sales function? This is not very clear, but I'm really impressed with this picture. So I'm going to read it out to you. If you cannot see it, it's really blurred. I couldn't get a high quality picture. This is about a sales guy's life cycle. What his friends think. What his mom thinks. What the society thinks. What his customers think. What he thinks he wants to do. He's trying to be a shepherd, a cowboy, and what he's really doing. This is really the journey, especially the month end. FMCG is a dream. This is an important slide, although it's not very heavy. FMCG sales are a dream for many in these schools, and no other career will crush your post-MBA ego like an FMCG job. It's a whole story of this thing. This is something that I picked up from a blog site, and I think it made a lot of sense. But it's so true. It can crush your ego, because you will get posted to the deepest jungles of India. Why are you nodding so much? There's something there. Yeah, speak loudly. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because I thought you'd been there, done that. So I wanted to share. Yeah. And they do that for 2-3 years, and by the time when you're creeping and you're cursing your line manager and you're calling him all the dirty words of life, but actually what is happening there is that one of the best leaders are being chipped up. Right? In many of the top-notch blue chip companies, not only in India but also in here, in fact my boss, my director, is an ex-business manager, because it really gets the juice of the thing. And therefore, these schools who know that and the students who know that really look forward to it. If you have a faint heart, then it's not for you. It's difficult. You know what the problem is with sales, and that's the part I hate most, honestly. There's just a difference of an alphabet between your stages. 1 month you're a hero, the next month suddenly the alphabet changes. Just because of a 30-day situation. But that's how it is, and that also I must tell you, it also has highs and lows. I must also tell you that the salespeople are some of the best earning citizens of corporate India and also corporate UAE, because no money. They work hard, they get money, and that's what is required. A career in sales is one of the most respected careers that you can choose, and if you think you want to do that, become a boy. Also, one point I have noticed that the one good advantage of starting with sales or being in sales somewhere is that suddenly you become a little more universal in doing whatever. Then suddenly a product marketing job or a marcom job, etc., you can actually handle it better. Because in sales, somehow you have to go through the entire life cycle of what's happening. So it does make you more flexible. If I am the marketing communications, one point. If I am the marketing communications manager of Canon, and tomorrow HP decides to recruit a sales head for Saudi Arabia, you think they will recruit me? They will not recruit me, because I am a communications guy, and I cannot really do selling. On the contrary, my chances of being recruited within Canon or outside, saying let me be a marketing manager, is still high while I'm on a sales job, because I go through the entire sales routine. So there is a flexibility factor that it brings in. I'm not trying to advocate it. Don't forget, I am the marketing guy myself. I just happen to be sales out of fate, or let's say that's how corporate life is. You have to take it sometimes. If somebody had a point, sorry, yeah.
So the question from the perspective of a sales guy.
Yeah.
So supposingly, a product is not good. The guy did not design.
Yeah.
How do you go about selling that product without being unethical?
Who knows the story of the 3 C's? No? I am. These are such cool stories. None of you are very rowdy like I used to share. But anyway, there is a saying, I forget the third thing, but I will definitely tell you. In sales, there is a saying that, use the 3 C's in a sales situation. First, you convince. He doesn't get convinced. Confuse him. If he's not confused, corrupt him. There's one C, there's another C, I forget what it was. Right. So that's, you're right, there are many situations where the sales guy, so it's about confusing, convincing, confusing, none of those work. It's correct, but then you might do the opposite. So that's just it's not a mission on the street. And that's for the after actors. Okay, so let's move on. I think we get lost. I don't know why. I think I need a big stop. I can't find something. Let's move on. So let's now we've established the sales and marketing issue. Do you understand who holds the profit and loss? It's not the finance guy, it's the marketing guy. And I'll come back to what I'm trying to say, because marketing is not the marketing that you are marketing yourself with, Mr. Marketing. Do you get it? Because the same thing happened to me, and I can understand what's going on in your heads. It's not like that. Yes, Mr. Non-Marketing.
Question of ethics here. We recently had a discussion with one of the professors about a concept called planned obsolescence.
Sorry?
Planned obsolescence.
Planned obsolescence, okay.
So So, sir, is it a marketing decision? Is it something like, is it something which has to, is a decision will come from the marketing side?
What?
Not obsolescence, like you reduce the life of your product on purpose just to
Yes,
increase
yes,
the number
yes,
of
absolutely. Every product has a product life cycle. I'm sure you're going to do that maybe somewhere. Product life cycles can be influenced by brands. When an R&D or factory churns out a product, there's already a recorded product life cycle, let's say 12 months. But in the event of turbulence, there are instances where it has also been shortened. And why do you have a product life cycle? Because the factory needs to have a plan of how many months it's going to do and all the capital investments and raw materials and forecasting and blah blah blah, all that against that. So you need to have a product life cycle. But there are instances where it can happen. So there is something always called slow. What do you think you get as discounts in the shops? Come to this corner, that's 50% discount and take 2 ice creams free and blah blah blah. What do you think that was? They kept producing it, nobody was buying it. We have one of those examples, and then they clear it out quickly before it gets the difficult. Who takes the loss? The sales guy or the marketing guy? The marketing guy. The finance guy just, that's all they do. That's all they do. Okay. Now, moving on to sales role quickly, we need to clarify what is sales role in the consumer durables or fast-moving industry. What is the sales role? It's not direct, you establish that, right? So, my friend, it's not as customer-facing as you would think it was. Now the balance for the sales guys. Because only the marketing guys are bad news? No. Your role is full of numbers. There is customer-facing, you will talk, but it's just full of numbers. Because the sales guy's role in a consumer durables industry is managing what kind of operation? Indirect operation, right? Which means he's not selling to any customer. He's not even seeing the face of the customer. What he's actually doing, and we discussed this quickly, difference between direct and indirect, so let's skip that. Oh, by the way, sorry, before I move on, if you would ever get recruited in an FMCG company, you more or less would be recruited in this space. Just for you to know. Okay, the designation. You wouldn't be here. Those are the ones who are normally school. You would be somewhere around here. So your route to the cabin becomes a provided you survive. All right. Quick stop. Hold on. Let me move in. Let me complete what I was saying. The sales job being indirect doesn't become a sales job anymore. Because you are distributing, he is distributing, there are at least 2 levels before it even hits the customer. So what is his job? Who is the guy who's in charge? You know what? Let's call her the factory. Let's call him the regional operation. Let's call Professor the final customer, right? Now between the factory and the customer, there is a space. What is this space called? No, it's not. Yeah, but that is a tool. You're right. I'm not wrong. This is the route to market. Market, factory. This is the fundamental principle of any business. Not complicated, not rocket science. Where it gets complicated, this is the CEO, marketing, sales. Clear? Factory needs to know supply chain, how much to ship to this market, right? How many units, how many people like Professor are there ready to buy? Factory does not know. Sitting in US, Japan, India, wherever. Factory doesn't know. Somebody has to tell the factory. Who will tell the factory? Sales will tell the factory, or marketing will tell the factory? Product marketing will tell the factory. कि भैया हमारे लिए 10 right? Who will tell marketing? Sales will tell marketing. So what are you doing? You're doing number. Correct? He will tell you. Does marketing believe the sales guy? No way. Amazing. Buffer, as an example. If he wants 10, sorry, I use Hindi, so I relate to the Indian market. Okay, so don't mind that. When we talk about channels, we might use Hindi a bit. I'm assuming that everybody understands Hindi and is Indian national. So then, that's okay. No issues, right? You know, because it is important, because in these schools, you might have your own requisites, and there is it's okay with this. Okay. So, does he believe the guy? He requires 10, he will always say 15. If he orders 15, he will have to hold 5 units as special offer, slow moving, because he is not going to take it. So this issue is there. So at the end of the day, the point is he's working on numbers. How does he get his numbers? Do you think he's going to all the professors in the gully? He cannot do that. He will go and ask his stockist number 1, stockist number 2. Correct? Now you see the chain? You see how complicated it's getting? You see where Hindustan Liver sends, why they send to the jungle? Because you need to know each and every stockist in your street. Hindustan Liver works on street. He will know how many crates are there, you know, that kind of a situation, which is what. But look at the beauty of this. All this is going back into the factory. How complicated, how indigenous, how much of system is required. So that is the point. Coming back to sales role is actually pit stop. Sorry, I have to stop. This is a very small pit stop. I just thought I liked this cartoon, so I just put it there. It says, everything on your resume was a lie. I like that. Welcome to sales. The whole point of being able to manage. In indirect sales is all about channel management. We just saw what channels are. If somebody cannot manage his channels, then he cannot play a game. So sales is only about channel management. It's about understanding where your boxes are moving all over the place. Because sales channels are the conduits by which we distribute the products. It comes in many shapes and sizes, and we need to know which channel why, blah blah blah. There is no difference whether you are in Timbuktu, in New York, in Dubai, or in Ghaziabad. This fundamental principle remains the same. The only difference being, in a market that is as clean as Middle East, you don't have a concept of stockist. Have you heard of stockist? In India, there is a stockist, there is a wholesaler, there is a distributor. It depends. The stockist, he has no value addition to the business. His value addition is that Mr. Stockist has got a lot of money. So we make him pay that and stock the goods so that he makes a small margin and rotates his cash. That's all he does. No value addition. Here there is no concept. So Canon Middle East has a distributor that sells Canon in UAE. The distributor will move it to the Carrefours and the Sharab Dikis and all those places that we've seen. This has moved, and it is that retailer that moves it to the consumer. Little more simpler than India, for your information. Also, little more simpler in terms of there is no concept of taxation in this country. So all those lines which you never figured out how to fix that is not available in this country. There is no concept of tax. There is no customer tax, there is no sales tax, there is nothing. So that complication is not there. Yes.
Given this point, I have a question.
Yes.
So if someone wants a plan to work with
yes. Yes. It could. Today, I am scared to go back to India. I think I will not be recruited in India. Even after so many years, I am scared. I might be wrong. I am not so confident because of the same reason. Because some of those elements that are available in that market, I will not know it. It's not necessary. Having said what I said, colleagues of mine were moved back to India doing extremely well in their career. So there is no rule like that. People understand that there is no rule like that. But it could be a point of confidence that I can understand. Because I am less confident. I haven't ventured out. Okay, so the reason is tax free. Yeah. Okay. So this is more or less all that we said. the end of the day, if it's sales, it is channel management, and if it's channel management, you have to know to segment your channel, you have to know to make policies and procedures because it's a very complicated go-to-market, and then you have to, while doing all this, maintain a lot of brand consistency. That is not easy. If the panwala, like somebody said, has to have your brand name, and if he doesn't put it up right, then who are you hampering? You're hampering your brand that has an equity in billions. Just because of this, so you have to maintain that consistency. It's not easy. Okay? Pit stop. Pit stop is a video. You guys need a 2-minute break or something? Or I plan to conclude on time. So we started a little late. So I think unless you guys delay by asking just 2 questions, then it's your fault. My part, I will do. I can imagine it's a weekend and you're having so much things to do. It's not a nap, it's just a video.
Just thought you might want to know, sales aren't up, they're down. Listen, want a new job? We've got the most. CareerBuilder.com.
That's not mad, there's something cute. Okay, moving on. We're done with sales now, for information. Are we clear? It's not easy. It's a lot of numbers, and it's the most well-paid jobs. It gives you flexibility accordingly. That's true for sure. All the best with that for sales, guys. The marketing function, quickly go to market option. Marketing is where the complication begins because we need to clarify a few things here. Marketing is not about the leather couch, it's not about creativity. Those are there, but it's not just about that. And I want to make that clear. But before I do that, why is marketing so important today? This whole point about iPhone that we made earlier is a very valid point. iPhone is extremely a unique example of cutting-edge technology that excites the customer saying, unbelievable, what am I saying? But for the same reason and theory, in 5 years' time, there's a possibility that you would get obsolescent. Because my friends, don't forget one thing, this whole psychology of human beings. What would happen if Priyanka Chopra walks down the aisle now? Not down the aisle, down the room now. You would be freaking excited. So happy to see her, and if somebody says, go speak to her, say, hi, no ways, man, I'm not doing that. I will do that. But what will happen if Priyanka Chopra walks? Between 1 and 1:30, every day she will walk. For Priyanka, yeah. You get my point? You get the psychology? It's about seeing the same thing over and over again. You're not excited about anything. Anybody married here? Ah. I'm so jealous. So this issue of cutting-edge technology, that is where the issue is. That's why the marketing thing has become so important. Because you really have to work hard. My friends, it's not easy to convince the customer. It's not easy to get there and make sure your sale happens. You know, it's not easy. It's just so difficult. There is so much competition. Anyway, with that theory, there is it's quite a humorous one, but it's true. When Ford made those T Ford models, the one that looks like that, you know, they said you can have any color as long as it is black. Because that's the production concept. This is the 60s we're talking about. There's no concept of marketing there. Launch a product, sell it. This is what we have, no choice. Now it's different. Now the concept is inputs. All those things that we discussed. So there's a difference between a production concept, and that's a sort of iPhone situation, and a marketing concept. This I've taken from a Unilever thing, because it is a Unilever's model that we're going to speak a little bit now, because it's an interesting one. But before I do that, there is something that I should have shown you, it's coming later. The marketing's role is really to do as you see there. This is all Unilever brands because of the Unilever example, but it's a good one. You're talking about all kinds of products, you know, not everything from deodorants to chai. So, for But at the end, irrespective of that, it's all about the cycle of you need to be out there, standing out, category leadership, for which you have to invest. You might need to invest. Marketing research, R&D, whatever you call it. At the end of it, the intention is to two things. Top line. What is top line? Line is the difference between the 100 or the 1000 that we spoke about. What is bottom line? The difference between the 10% or the 1% that we spoke about. The perfect combination, which is fairy tale, is you have the 1000 on top and 10 below. It will never happen. So that's what everybody is trying to get or trying to sustain. But of course, industry standards are there. Fast-moving consumer, net profitability, whichever country you are in, cannot be anything beyond 3%. 3% is extremely high. It's normally 1.5 as a general rule, just for information. So can you imagine, after doing the entire cycle of this factory to production and all those 5-figure salaried CTC people and stock option people coming, the company is making 1%. Sometimes you think, what's going on? That's the kind of volume that we're talking about. So, pit stop. This pit stop is, I think, an ad. I hope you've not seen it. And if you've not, it makes it all the more better. If you've seen it as well, it's okay. So I just quickly discuss it. And let's spend.
Such a feeling's coming over me. There is wonder in most everything I see. Not a cloud in the sky, got the sun in my eyes, and I won't be surprised if it's a dream. I'm on top of the world.
This is the end. Beautiful friend. This is the end. My only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The
Nice ad. Okay, if you've not seen it or seen it for the first time? You've seen it? Okay. You don't need to discuss this a lot. Clearly the objective was fine. Make such an extremely creative ad that people just don't forget. Because you will not in your wildest dreams imagine that mouse suddenly start doing push bars on that situation. So you never forget it. That's the whole idea. This whole Marlboro man, the guy on the horse, they did that in a different way. They kept printing it and printing it. But how many of us would go and do, Bhaiya, those Xerox copies, those Xerox copies, Xerox is a brand. It's photocopy. So how did they do that? Although sometimes it also has this bad effect because it goes to a situation where they launch a different product. People don't go there. Still start with it. That's there. So it's complicated. But anyway, this is the yeah. Yes. Sorry, can we share what he's trying to say? Yeah.
So the adding that adding for like
yes. 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 Television commercial. Why?
So the ad is for 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes, so we can't use it for most of the times where we want to use it. Like IPL advertisements or the peak hours, we can't use the ad because it is for too lengthy. So that's a constraint also. So Yes, sir, it's a practical thing because 10-second ad costs you like many crores for telecasting of IPL. I mean,
I know, I'm coming to the exact point. Each time slot works on a 10-second situation. Sometimes you might have a 30-second, but nothing beyond that mostly. This is a 1 minute or 2 minute ad, and as long as you have the money to pay, it doesn't matter.
so but the break won't be for like that long.
Sorry?
So the break won't be for that long and you won't like to invest.
It depends, that's a very operational discussion. It depends, there are conceptually you can run that. Okay,
Sir, it's a very good ad. I know the concept, it's a very good ad. I'm saying the practical feasibility of
that's why
it.
information normally ads when it's short are very readable. One discussion is a good discussion. We can come back, but one discussion is a good discussion because otherwise it becomes a little, not fun. So let's have one discussion. Okay, so just for information, ads once created are immediately made by 3 or 4 versions by the agency. So if the original ad is, let's say, 120 seconds, immediately the agency would make a 20-second or a 10-second or a 30-second version of it by editing it to suit certain formats. Just for you. It's not that it's one size fits all, you're right, but when an ad is made, immediately different versions of the same ad is open. So it will affect versions. Just for you. Yeah. So any other points? Can we move on? Okay. Okay, this is looks complicated. Don't look at it in that sense of so many colors, so many words, etc. Okay, it's not as complicated. I just want to quickly tell you, this is again a unit-level model. But as you can see, this whole brand building concept, has got a lot of things: planning, brand planning, innovation, communication, etc. etc. This normally happens at the headquarters of that company, not really at the India office or the Dubai office, etc. What happens in the regional offices is mostly the brand building. So, making a marketing plan, making a launch event, or doing the activation like we discussed, or doing the customer marketing and the category management and all those. That's what really happens in this subsidiary. So it's more operational stuff. So you might make a commercial, you might make a campaign, you might make a road show, all these kind of things. But the strategic thing of what should be the color of that label, yeah, that would happen in the headquarters. In Indian market, that is also decided because the Indian market is complicated and you won't have products that suits the Indian market. Okay, so there you go. Does anybody know a product called, I forget the name, it starts with M, Marmite? It's a British product. Marmite. How many people know Marmite? You use Marmite? Good. Marmite is a product that is a big hit in the UK. It's like a jam. It's basically a sandwich spread in the UK.